Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video. In this video we are going to be looking at Laopo, who is a new promo character to come into the game. And it is a character that obviously can become 5-star ascendable, 6-star, and it's going to have an S-class version as well. Now Laopo in Chinese means wife, so I believe this is a female character who is a monk, I would assume, but I'm not 100% certain. I'm not going to assume too much. I'm just basically, I looked up what Laopo meant and it means wife, so it's interesting that that would be the name if it was a guy, but I don't know. I don't really care. We're going to look at the 5-star version, and it looks like I guess like a sort of a monk, basically. The 6-star version gets buffed up in terms of visuals. As you can see, the hat, I guess the prayer beads around the neck, kind of Shaolin monks sort of looking. It's got a massive axe though, obviously that's the default weapon. And as a 6-star character, has 2,094 attack, 2,629 defense, and 2,244 HP. This is with full veteran rings, of course. This is not her, maxed out stats otherwise, but this is with full veteran rings. Her trait is strong, role is support, and she is 100% support character. Adrenaline rush is called Tranquil Zen. Recharge rate of 85 AP. One enemy and all adjacent enemies get impair, daze, and 50% reduced attack for 3 turns. That is pretty insane, especially as we are sort of in the taunt meta, which is going around. So impair resist is not really that prominent, and this is so strong that impair may have to come back. The impair resist may have to come back. This is a character that can stop all of your characters from doing any actives, because there's no daze resist at the moment, but it can stop all of your characters doing any actives, any rushes, and basic attacks will do 50% reduced damage for 3 turns. You can't cleanse this because you've got no actives to do that. You can't, you can only resist impair, basically. Or you could potentially resist attack down if you wanted to go that way. I don't think that would be the way to go. Now, people may look at it and go, 85 AP, not that great, and I would agree. 85 AP is not that great on a 6-star character at this point in the game. Once upon a time, 6-star characters coming out of 85 AP wasn't too bad. Thinking back to Lydia when she was released, extremely strong character, still pretty strong for a 6-star, but I would agree that 85 AP right now for a 6-star release is not great. But however, there is an S-class version, so we'll look at that in a second. The active skill is Exhaust, and up to 4 enemies get 225 exhaust for 3 turns. And exhaust basically means that for every 10% AP gain you get from sort of outside sources, which is basically active skills, on your rush, that sort of thing, any AP gains like that, for every 10% of the AP that you gain, so let's say you have an 80 AP rush, which no one has, but it's just very easy. For every 8, you'd take 225 damage, which doesn't, and it would be main damage as well, but it doesn't seem like that much. But let's say Dr. Stevens, who gets 100%, would take 2,250 exhaust damage straight away as main, instantly. No damage output from this character otherwise. She does have a leader skill, is all melee teammates get 20% HP, 20% defense, and a huge bonus to AP when taking damage. This is identical to S-Class Pete's, but instead of it being all ranged, it's all melee. And Laopo is going to be basically the melee version of an S-Class Pete in terms of what the character's going to be there for. It's going to be a defensive character that's mainly going to be a defense team leader. Now, she does not have an attached weapon, but as mentioned, she does have an S-Class version. And this is what the S-Class version looks like. It is obviously going to have buffed up stats. This is without veteran rings. So without veteran rings, it's 2,914 attack, 4,126 defense, and 3,539 HP. So obviously, really, really strong defensive stats. Compared to any 6-stars, instantly going to blow them out of the water. Compared to the other S-Class characters, quite a defensive character, still obviously leaning massively towards that defensive stat, which is going to be really hard to break down. Obviously, Bleed can bypass that, and Bleed teams are probably one of the best ways to attack S-Class teams. So you're gonna have to get those Bleed teams out and just get them rocking, because these teams are going to be extremely hard to take down, because Laopo doesn't even have to have leader skill and can just sit behind S-Class Pete and still be so strong just based on the fact that those base stats are that good. But that isn't all. Obviously, it can be upgraded with veteran rings, and the stats can be boosted yet again massively to 4,094 attack, 5,363 defense, and 4,388 HP. So huge amount of stats once you go for that maxed out S-Class. This is really, really, really powerful. This is over 13,000 stats base. Without mods, without weapon. This is so strong. So strong. A very high attack stat, all things considered, though, because there's no percentage on the rush. These things do get increased. Trait remains strong. Roll is still support. Now, there are changes to the rush. Instead of it being adjacent, it's now up to 5 enemies. So let's say you attack with a shield. Before, you could have narrowed that rush down to only being 3 that got affected. Now it doesn't matter. It's going to attack behind the shield, no problem. Obviously, didn't mention it before, but if you had a Guardian shield on your attack team, it wouldn't make any difference. This would attack behind Guardian shields that are procced because it does no base damage. There's no initial percentage damage. So it will just instantly just occur on all of your characters. It is slightly improved as well. It goes to 60% reduced attack from 50% reduced attack. That doesn't really mean too much. It is so powerful. It still lasts for 3 turns. And even though it is 85 AR, just 100% comparing it to Lydia when she was first released, this character compared to Lydia in terms of the sort of system they were released within, you know, S-Class, Laopo being the 3rd ever, it's going to be so strong for a very, very long time. Lydia was really strong anyway, and is still usable to this date, in my opinion, just based on the fact that the rush is really, really nice. Again, this rush is really, really nice. It's going to have so much control, and like I mentioned, just based on the 6-star version, Impair Resist isn't really used as much because Taunt Resist is so massively required based on all the 6-stars that are running around with it. Now we've got S-Class coming in with a completely different sort of like meta that's required, but there's still 6-star teams out there. We're sort of transitioning, but not everyone's going to be able to adjust because obviously not everyone's got the pieces to do so. Now, some people are still rolling around with 5-star characters in their attack team, and this is the sort of characters they're going to be coming up against now. The active skill has been increased as well. It now has up to 5 enemies get 300 exhaust for 3 turns. So it gets increased from 4 enemies to 5 enemies. It also gets increased to 300 exhaust from 225. So it'd be 3,000 main damage to someone like Dr. Stevens, and it lasts for 3 turns. So yeah, very strong on defense. One of the few ways you can really sort of like take advantage on attack teams against these S-Class teams is either bleed, burn, these sort of things, or getting things off really quickly and often. And I guess someone like Dr. Stevens would be a character that could do that. However, not so much with that active skill. The biggest bonus though with Dr. Stevens is you will go first before this active skill can go off. However, afterwards, you're not going to be able to get that active skill off again unless there would be a small window. You'd have the control on attack team to know you've got exhaust on you or not, and it's up to you. You'd make a decision at that point. If someone was to use Laopo on an attack team, which I don't think they do, but you never know because just that amount of control is insane. That counters characters like S-Class Pete, that counters S-Class Priya in terms of them never being able to rush. Massive stat reduction in their attack stat as well because 60% attack stat reduction is huge. So this character actually wouldn't be too bad on attack, at least initially, until more S-Class characters came out. Now the leader skill gets buffed as well. All melee teammates get 30% HP and 30% defense instead of 20/20. And the huge bonus remains to AP when taking damage. It's identical to S-Class Pete, like I mentioned before, but just the melee version. Now, while this character is great, obviously, in terms of just pure stats, is just so immense. The amount of control this character has on the rush is really, really strong. Obviously, you're not going to be able to rush. You're not going to be able to active. You're not going to be able to basic attack with very, very strong attacks. So you're going to have some sort of resist somewhere. Otherwise, you're in a lot of trouble. Or you're going to have to be able to control Laopo as a priority. And prioritizing someone who doesn't do any damage is generally a really bad call in terms of you want to take out the troublesome targets like S-Class Priyas on defense teams. Not try and control someone just to stop them from controlling you. This is a character that will instantly put an end to your raid. Because if this goes off once and you don't have Impair Resist, there's nothing you can do. It will just keep going off. It will not slow down. Because it lasts for 3 turns, that's enough for it to happen 100% of the time. And it doesn't, and because it's not adjacent on the S-Class version, there's no way it can fail to hit everybody. It just will hit up to 5 enemies, which is your entire attack team. However, there is weaknesses, of course. The active skill is kind of countered by the rush itself, in that if someone has the effect of the rush on them, they're not going to be able to active skill, so obviously the exhaust isn't going to happen. They're not going to be able to rush, so obviously there's no chance of, you know, the AP gains on rushes. The exhaust is kind of useless if the adrenaline rush has taken effect, which it's going to do the majority of the time. I'm not really sure how you're going to be able to deal with this character and still be able to deal with what is like the wider meta. So a lot of people will probably use a mix match. If they use Laopo, they'll probably have a couple of taunt characters in there as well, and you're in a lot of trouble. And considering this is a leader character, you know, for melee teams, you're going to have someone, you know, like L's behind this character. And L obviously has taunt, and one of those characters is going to just take full control of your attack team at that point. So Laopo is the 3rd S-class character to be released, and the current one that's actually able to be pulled even now, or at least up until Laopo is going to be released, is S-class Priya. So it has been a 24/7 S-class release for the last 2 weeks, and it's going to continue with Laopo probably for another 2 weeks. And obviously the next S-class character, which I'm going to guess is going to be released in 2 weeks from now, is probably going to be a fast character, just because we have had one of each trait so far except fast. And I'm going to guess again it's probably going to be an offensive character, just because we've had a defensive one in a ranged character, which was S-class Pete. Then we had an offensive one in the tough character, which was S-class Priya. Now we've had another defensive one in Laopo, and we'll probably have an offensive one in a fast character coming up. Now the biggest issue I have with S-class still, so the same thing I said before, is it's mainly the balance between the wider player base and people who will get their hands on S-class characters really quickly. In terms of the regularity at which these characters are getting released as well, is very quick. And I would say at the very least, just based on the strength of these characters, there should probably be releases of Legacy Ascendables at the same rate. Considering how bad Legacy Ascendables are, generally speaking, they are, just simply put, fairly enjoyable to actually be able to get your hands on a character, to be able to ascend it, to be able to play with a newer character, even if it's not in raids, even if it's not in anywhere where you desperately need help and increase in power. At least you're going to be getting some new characters. In the time that the first 3 S-class characters were released, there has been 1 Legacy Ascendable, which was Romanov. And Romanov obviously is a character that's released to free-to-play to deal with the current issues which free-to-play face, which is S-class characters. I need to know how in hell Romanov is going to deal with this, because he can barely kill a Gen 2 6-star right now. The only characters he even scratches are strong characters who are Gen 2, and he has to double down on the attack stat on the trait mods. He has to get massive amounts of damage output, has to go very, very glass cannon, and then he can just about one-shot people with his rush. Just about one-shot. If he attacks anyone else but a strong character, he barely does like a quarter HP to them sometimes. But that's the Legacy Ascendable that's been released in this time that the first 3 S-class characters have been released. So there's me just sitting here with a lot of question marks just floating above my head right now. But anyway, this is Laopo. Will be a very strong defense team character and probably quite useful on attack teams just for full control, at least in the meantime, like I said before, until S-class characters become a little bit more prominent. There'll probably be more dangerous ones in the future that could be used on attack teams. But this character will be able to control S-class Pete teams easily, just based on the fact that, you know, you can't have all the resists, but you know, I would say you should probably double down on resist for S-class Pete, just based on the fact that he's got such high stats anyway. But that's the end of my video. Do tell me what you think about this S-class character release. What do you think about the S-class character release rate, especially compared to, you know, like I said before, Legacy Ascendables? The rate comparison is just, it's kind of laughable. But hey, that's the end of my video. Thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.